Hi guys, this is Humphrey here. So today I'll try to explain the process of sketching in Clip Studio. So here you start out with a blank canvas. So basically this size is more or less an A4 size. So then I'd advise you use the mapping pen. I found it the easiest to use when sketching. So let me try to explain the process of how I came to make this page. So normally how I begin doing characters, I start with the header. So as you can see here, so for the head we do simple shapes like circles. Circular shapes they're easier to capture the outline of a character's head. So that horizontal line I just made over there, that is the line for the eyebrow. It guides where the eyebrows will sit on the face and the eyes. So it's a foundation for where most of these things will fall on the face. Then the second line I just made right now, that's the line for the neck. So the third line I just made right there, that is the line for the shoulders. So anybody who has a problem on where to place these items, it is the easiest way to do that. So and I know normally what I found out, a good sketch is a good foundation for a nice final piece. So if you don't have a good sketch, then basically your final stuff will look like crap. So let's just be real there. So as we go on, so the second line I just made right there, that is the lower part of the chest. So this upper line I made over here, that is for the shoulders, and then this lower line, this is where the chest ends. So if you look at the sketch of a skeleton, when they're drawing this, when look at a skeleton, there's normally the chest area. Then from there, there's a certain line that goes below here. Then it's followed by the rest of the bones down here. So these will guide you in where to put the character's chest. So you see some people's sketches, some of their sketches they look imbalanced. This is mainly because of this. So you need to have this in place. So what else? Let's see. Yeah, so that other line I made, that's the line for the joint for the right arm of the character. So when you're drawing hands, it's good to I'd say use basic shapes in general for whatever you're doing. Basic shapes will help guide you in most of the area. So the reason why this line is so big like this is because this character is muscular. So if the character was slightly smaller, the line will be a bit smaller, as you'll see when I draw the second character. So I drew both of them at least to balance that. And then if you look carefully, you'll notice that the ends of the joints normally end at the end of the chest area, especially when the character is facing upwards or is pushing the chest forward. So if you just check your own self, you'll notice that the end of your joint, the first part of your arm, ends towards where your chest begins. The end of your chest. Yeah, so that second line I made there, it's the continuation of the arm when it meets the second joint. This is the second joint here, then towards the end of your forearm, then your wrist starts somewhere here. So let's see that. Let's see the process. So this particular character, he has his arms. His arms are inwards toward his body, which means that if the joint, the first part of your joint and the lower part of your joint are inwards towards your body, definitely the rest of your hands will shoot outwards, or maybe you have your hands inwards. So anybody who has trouble manipulating the position of their character, these are good markers. So the first marker is this, which is it's the first joint up here, and there's the lower joint up down here. So if you want to move your characters, you need to play with these circles. So let's see that. Yeah, so as I said, the chest ends here. So this line going all the way from here to here, that's the spine. Yeah. So as soon as you have this lower line, this is the diaphragm. So if you've ever done biology, it's something called the diaphragm. When you're breathing in, breathing out, it's a lot of theory here. But if you just stay with me, you might I think you'll get the idea. So as I explained earlier, this lower line here will help you, it will help guide the positioning of the arms. So if I wanted the character's hands to be inwards, this line that I drew just here, this line I would have drawn it inwards. So it think of it like a fulcrum and a pulley, the things you did in physics. So for those of you that didn't take physics, uh, what I can say is you use this circular part here. I don't know if I should call it a fulcrum. It's kind of hard to explain that, but this circular part is what you use to manipulate the characters around. So even when you're drawing fight scenes and all that, if you can just master these basic ones, the rest of it will fall in place. So using basic shapes to get to the larger objective we are looking for. So as you can see, so this way, yeah. So each of these hands are facing outward. So with just those simple, so there was the first joint, second joint, and the third joint. Let's see. Yeah, so what I just do, that is the palm of the hand. The fingers are not even there yet. So if you look at your own hand, this is something I came across when I was researching comics. You need to look at you draw basic shapes. Don't try to start out with all the details. Like the problem I see with most guys is guys just want to jump straight into putting details into artworks. My own sketches are they're detailed, yes, but they don't start out like that. If you look carefully, they look like normal scribbles here, but there's a point to it. All of this, what you just saw, this is it's a good base. So anyone who is trying to get into artworks and drawing, I'd advise you just start small, start simple. Don't try to copy the masters that are there. Everybody starts from somewhere. just start with simple shapes like this. This is just the palm of the hands. Then from there, I'll show you the fingers. Let's see. Yeah, so see, that's how the fingers are. Nice, simple lines. So this should should be maybe bring back flashbacks of maybe one or two of you guys doing stick figures back in preschool or elementary. So anybody who isn't in Africa. So apparently stick figures are actually a very good base if you're trying to make an artwork that is uniform. People don't use stick figures or simple shapes to make make the final piece of the artwork of the artwork, especially in comics. I found out that the movements don't look that smooth, and I've made this mistake in the beginning when I didn't used to use this method. So it's a matter of trial and error. So anybody who is trying to get into this comic stuff, I'd advise you just how can I say this? Just experiment, and then don't be afraid to fail. The worst thing you can do is not try it. And the thing is this: you're not getting any better by not doing anything. So you're better off just doing it in your own. Do it and fail, and make something that looks crappy. And the more crap work you make, over time you'll come to see your own mistakes, and you'll be able to fix them. So all in all, that was the first character. What we just saw. So already you can see there's some semblance of fingers over there. There's something that looks like fingers. So, so when you see something like that, this is more like predicting the future. I'd say it's something like that. So when you're doing something like, you need to have like a vision of what you want this thing to look like when it's done. And this is more. I'd say in general, this video is more about the sketching process. So don't really expect me to do the inking here, because normally I do most of my sketching on traditional pen and paper. Reason being, I don't want to lose the traditional skill, and I find it faster to do it on pen and paper than on the computer. I'm not actually using a Cintiq tablet right now, but if I was to use a Cintiq tablet, then I would delve fully into the digital stuff. But for normal commission work, this is what I normally do. But when it comes to like a long running series like comic work, yeah, I tend to go on pen and paper, but the process is more or less the same. So I'd say the purpose of this video is to help you guys to get an idea of what goes into making a comic or comic page or characters and the sketching process that I use personally. So this first character was male. So let's get that out of the way. This second character is female. So and if you want to know the differences, that's why I was talking about why this circle is so big and this other circle is smaller. So this other character is a female character. So she doesn't really have that much upper body. She doesn't have that much of a body strength compared to the character. So naturally, her muscles on the upper part of her arm will be smaller. This other character has exaggerated features. He's not entirely human, but he is male, which means his shoulders are broader. So if you compare with the shoulders of the female character, they are smaller, and most male characters have their shoulders more in line with the shape of their with the width of their hips. So let's see that. Let the sketch continue. So let me just continue from here. So this is the shoulder. This line is very close to the edge of the hip. So when I'm adding details later on, you see that the line of the edge of the shoulder is more or less straight in line with the edge of the hip. But in males it's different. The edge of the shoulder for a male is actually more extended compared to the hip. So for a male, it's literally the whole length of the hand of this upper muscle. At the end of it is where actually the hip starts. So if you look at yourself as a guy, you'll notice that your hips start towards the end. It's like a literal straight line, but your hand is sticking out for a guy. But for a chick, it's different. For them, the edge is what lines up with their hips. Let's see that. So most people are having problems with drawing legs. It's the same concept as above. So the same concept. So you're supposed to just use this circle. These circles are everything, honestly. Even when you're drawing motion in action scenes, when you get better at it, you'll find it easier. So what I was doing here was basically adding environmental factors. This is actually meant to be a sketch for maybe a cover page, but it's a one-off, so it's not really part of the book as of now. But so yeah. So anybody who is not informed, I've been making a comic book. It's titled The Unaffected Resolve. So it involves these two characters. It's actually not two characters, it's actually three characters. So the main character is called Lisa Sagini. So it's this particular female character here. Then there's this other character here. He looks like a cat. So for now he's called the cat guy, but later on as you read the comic, his name is revealed. So the title itself is The Unaffected Resolve. So anybody who is following me on Instagram, you can go over there. The link to the comic, it's on the bio. You can find it there. You can read it online for free. But anybody who wants to support, you can find me on PayPal at ezrexecutive@gmail.com. So what I just did over there was what I put the environment stuff down there. So same concept up here with the chick. You use this line for the eyebrows. This second line is very important actually. This second line is used for the nose. These characters are facing upwards, so this line is what determines where the position of the head. So if she was facing downwards, the line would be curved downwards. But since this character is facing upwards, the line is curved upwards. So it's just like a smile upside down. You think of it like that, it will be easier. So this simple stuff I added here to the side. These were the ears. So most people I found out they had problems with drawing necks. So drawing necks apparently it's a hard thing for some guys. So yeah, so when you're doing necks, it's usually easier to go with like a triangle shape, upside down. Once you've done the triangle shape, you connect from the head upwards. Then you drop you come and drop this it's a curve, basically a curve. So so this is what happened. This was the shoulders. So you drop a curve, and going back to the earlier circles we made, these circles will guide when you're putting in the flesh. So that's exactly what is happening here. So the second line I made here, that was for her chest. So this is just to show the shape of her body. Let's see. So when you're doing character design, there's something I learned about character design. Even when you're doing the outlines of your characters, without the details, they should still be distinct. So anybody doing character design, you need to actually spend enough time to make your characters unique enough. Of course, I know many ideas have already been done, but how your characters different from each other? Like, you don't want 5 characters looking the same in one comic. It kind of beats the purpose, and it doesn't make them memorable. A good story is, I feel, is memorable. So like the thing with Lisa particularly, she has some particular accessories she wears, but her body shape is I would say it's different from her other main characters. She's smaller in shape actually, and what else? She's smaller, and then the other character behind her, the other character is bigger. Yeah. So let's see. So what I was doing, I was trying to just capture the main outlines of the characters. So after I finished with capturing the outlines of Lisa, then I moved up here with the cat guy. So what I was doing here was capturing the shape of his chest. After I did that, now I went back up to his head. So look carefully. Oh, what happened here was this curve here. So I just transferred the same curve up there. So each of them is facing the same direction. I got his head shape after doing that. Same concept with the neck. You just draw a V shape. So for this character is a bit muscular. So look at this. For the chick, I'd say her shoulders are a bit more flat compared to this. This guy has neck muscles. So this is what happens. So for most, I'd advise guys to do some study on anatomy. You'd understand how muscles work. But the thing with comics that people don't get the idea is they don't really have to be perfect. The funny thing is when something is it's too good, it tends to be boring. So don't be afraid to make mistakes. Just do your thing. There's nothing as boring as something that is photorealistic. It looks good, yes, but it doesn't incite that feeling of how do I describe it? The feeling of what imagination. When you imagine something, you don't usually imagining something realistic. You are in Wonderland. That's the whole concept of daydreaming and all that. So the mistakes you make, they might add character. Just make sure they'll add character to your stuff. But it's not an excuse for you to go and make mistakes when you're doing comic work. But they won't make it human. There's no such thing as perfect art. So anybody who ever lied about that is a big lie. So let's see. This here I was still adding details. So I moved here to the arm. What else? These are the knuckles. So when you're doing knuckles, something I need to point out. When you're doing knuckles, you start with this what? There are these bones that connect to the fingers. So you just draw like an outline on the outside. That outline will guide you when you're doing details. Like see when you're doing these fingers, you start from the outside, then you work your way inwards. That way. So as you do that, things get better. Let me forward this. So the arm is done. What else? Yeah, I need to go back on this. So when you're doing clothing on characters is so important. So as you just saw, you need to capture the outlines first. Then now you focus on the clothing. Then finally their details. People tend to do it backwards. Someone tends to put all the details on the face first instead of focusing on the clothing. It's like I said with character design. Whatever they are wearing, the accessories they wear, these are what defines these characters. Yeah, so see, just with the cat guy, his ears alone tell you that he's different from the other characters. So any character design you do, you need to pay attention on the accessories you give those characters, and then are they functional? Like one thing I didn't like about many comics is characters having clothes that aren't really functional. So back to accessories. Lisa has this pair of glasses she always wear. In our country we call it goggles, but let me just call it glasses out here. There's nothing really special about them except that they have night vision, and they have sentimental value to the character. So if you want to read more about that, as I said, head over to my Insta or just here on my YouTube page. Go into one of my sites and you see that. So anybody who's watching the video until now, don't forget to like and subscribe. I know I've been rambling a lot, but yeah. So if you made it this far, congrats to you. Yeah, let's see how it goes. Still on accessories. This is Lisa's particular cloth design. She wears a leather jacket. Let's see. So shading. Wow. So anybody who started out into drawing, you're familiar with this. There's something called pencil shading. So most of my work I tend to focus on shading. I came to find out but right now my work is more simpler than it was in the beginning. So you tend to grow as you do more of it. You'll make many mistakes in the beginning when you're trying out shading, but eventually you'll get the hang of it. You learn how many lines you can use without it being too much. In the beginning, I used to use too many lines, but these days I ended up reducing it. I can find out simpler is better. So as of now, the sketch might look a bit messy, but when you do inking, yeah, it cleans up good. So let's see. So over here, this character she's wearing a badge. It's a country badge. So anybody reading the comics will know that in the comic we have the nation of Kenya. It's working with other nations. There's the US. There's an Asian nation inside that. So basically, there are these creatures that came into Africa. They attacked. So if they bite you, they infect you. So anybody who watch werewolf movies is aware of something like that. So that's the kind. It's like this coronavirus going around right now. It's like when you get it, you end up spreading it to someone else by not wearing a mask. So the story in this book operates more or less on the same premise. There's a virus going around, but in this case, it doesn't. It's not the coronavirus. It's something else. There are creatures going around that were once human. They got bitten by something, and yeah. So when you get bitten by these things, you become one of them. So these guys are trying to fight against that. So no more spoilers beyond that. Just go read the book. So as I said, it's called The Unaffected Reserve. That's a shameless plug. So yeah, so let's see how far has this gotten. So this is still on the accessories. So let me forward the video forward. Let's see, save on time. Don't want the video to be too long. So let's see. Still on sketching. Yeah, so this other character has a jacket. This is more or less the rest of the jacket. So let's see. Yeah, when you're doing maybe weapons, I think guys should do research on this also. There are these things that guys in military wear. There's the attaché case that a hitman uses. I've forgotten the name of these particular things, but they wear them on their feet. They use them as extra carrier bags, either to carry weapons or guns, especially on this side. So yeah, the enemies that requires to be shot, so people need to be armed in this book. So it's not just for show. So these characters actually use this, but they can't really use them that much. So let's see how far has it gone. Yeah, okay. Let me see something. So when you're sketching, as I said before, don't try to be perfect. You're allowed to maybe do a line once and then redo it again. Just like that. Let's see. Yeah. Shading. So anybody who wants to get into comics, I'd say this. Just go buy books on pencil shading and all that. It might seem insignificant at the beginning, but funny enough, comics are more or less a traditional media. So as much as technology has gone forward with digital art and software such as this, eh, the softwares, what the softwares do, they more or less tend to highlight your inefficiencies. You might think the softwares are there to make everything better. They are, but the unspoken thing that people never tell you is that they show, they tend to show your inefficiencies. Like if you don't know how to sketch, it becomes more pronounced within these softwares because there's no guiding line, or even if you, and I found it's even worse when you try to set the software to self correct lines for you. It doesn't help your artwork look much better, honestly. So just learn basic pencil shading, know where light falls. Yeah. Go look at other comics. Look for your favorite comic artists. Look at how they do their stuff. Should help you when you're developing yours. So for anybody who is going to ask why is the video so long on sketching, because I am working on the second part of the book right now, and I really doubt I'll go back and do a full in-depth video on sketching, because I do most of my sketching traditionally, as I mentioned. So more or less the next series of videos you see here is more like it's me inking. I'd say sketching is one of the hardest parts, and then the second hardest is the inking, and then the third one is the color. So you're going to get into comics, know how to sketch, know how to ink, know how to do your colors. Eh? So it's a process. Yes, when you're doing mouths, this is the purpose of all those lines that we did before. This is where it comes in. Yeah. So there's not really much to say at this point. It's a matter of skill and go make mistakes, learn where things go, find your way. Honestly, it's actually kind of hard to to explain some of these things to people, but watching the video itself in real time should help people get an idea of what goes into this. So let's see. Let me forward it further. The eyes. Let me forward back. Yeah. So when you're doing eyes. There's this English saying, and the eyes are the window of the soul. So positioning your eyes is very important, and then it's not just a circle. It's something called the iris, the pupil, and all that. You need to look into all the details. They might seem insignificant at first, but they do count. Then don't be afraid to correct some mistakes you made before, like just as I did this ear fresh. The sketch I did, the line was too thick, but keep in mind this drawing itself will be like on a size that is smaller than A4. Like the international comic size is actually smaller than A4 size. So most of these lines that you might see are thick this close. When you zoom out, they tend to disappear. So what I also came to find out is don't focus too much on putting necessary details, because once the comic is printed on its original in its real size, all those details you've been agonizing over, they'll be lost. So focus on the details that matter. Then when you make a book and it's not as perfect as you wanted, just move on because there's always something you can improve on. Just move on. Make the next one. So if you get criticism on a book, maybe it's not the best effort you made for. Like for me personally, I had to redo the book because the first draft I ever made was back in 2016. So and the book was so dark. I reached out to one of the comic guys in the industry, had him critique the book, and he just told me straight up the book was too dark. I used so many shadows. I was really trying to follow that Marvel style, but then I came to find out it's not really my thing. I can do it, yes, but it's not really, at that point I wasn't equipped with the right skills, and so everything turned out so muddy. So over time, the more I kept working for clients and doing commission work, I found my style. I found simple is better, and I can still looking back at the high school days when I was doing sketches. What made my work so good was always details. And when I started throwing in those big shadows that you see in the Marvel comics, most of the details were lost. So then I decided I needed to make a change. Let's see. Yeah, so basically the details on the characters are almost done. The video is almost done. So let's see. So this is the smoke over here. So anybody would be asking, someone who was asking how to shed smoke. For smoke, I just advise put most of the lines in one direction. Don't try to, I'd say don't do cross hatching when you're doing smoke. Just do simple lines, simple thing. Because even the colors like when you're going to do sketching, you also need to keep in mind how it's going to look when you ink and color it. So anything you do, you need to like think 10 steps ahead. Make it as simple as possible, because you also need to look at efficiency. But also simple is best. When something is too complicated, even the reader who is reading, the eyes tend to get tired. So anybody who's done any research into comics, you'll notice that the backgrounds are always, most comics don't include a lot of details on backgrounds, but you're advised to at least put 1 or 2 frames with enough background information. That's one of the biggest mistakes I made in the first book I ever made, first comic. So the first comic I made of the Unaffected Resolve was, I did include scenery, scenic views. Yeah, they're called scenic views. I didn't do that. That was a big mistake. That's something the other guy pointed out. So, I tell anybody getting into comics in the beginning, get someone to critique your work. Get them to just tell you your honest opinion of your stuff. It might hurt in the beginning, and you have to accept this. Your first effort won't be your best. You'll definitely suck. I won't lie. You'll suck. Especially if you're a beginner, you will suck. But at that point when you're doing it, you might think you're the best, but you're not. But time will humble you. And I'd say this, Rome wasn't built in a day. The guys who've been doing this thing for 6 years or 7 years till they started making steps in the industry. So I'd say anybody trying to get into this, take your time, learn the process, learn the game. Yeah, that's how it is. So the sketch is more or less done here. So what I was just doing here was adding a bit of background. So if this was a cover page, the cover page has to be as simple as possible. Don't put too much details in there. Like, I used to make this mistake in the past. I used to throw like 6 characters in the cover, add a lot of background, and man, the cover was too cluttered. So on the recent book I made, I just limited it to 3 characters, a little bit of background details, and that was it. Yeah, so the video ends here, but all in all, if you get into Clip Studio, I'll tell you this, it won't hold your hand. You need to actually be good at sketching stuff traditionally. Get good at doing things traditionally on pen and paper. Take pen and paper, sketch on it. Get good at that first. If you can master the fundamentals on pen and paper, then coming into softwares like Clip Studio and Photoshop, uh, doing this, if you can do this on pen and paper, then you'll have an easy time on these softwares. So all in, yeah, that's the end of the video. So anybody interested in learning more about this stuff, keep following the channel. If you've reached the end of the video, kudos to you. This is so long. Yeah, so congrats. That's the end of the video. My name is Humphrey. You can find me on Instagram at Humphrey Soro. Head over there, show your love. If you're here on YouTube, like and subscribe the video. Thanks.